Welcome back to the Your Golf Performance Podcast. We're joined today with, I'm going to say, a legend of Australian golf coaching, Steve Bann. Thank you so much for coming on.
You're welcome. Looking forward to it, Brent.
It's not often we get to pick a brain, someone like yourself that's been so successful over the last 2 to 3 decades here in Australia. Do you want to just give us a bit of a backstory on how you got into golf and sort of how you ended up coaching?
How I got into golf was back in the day, the traditional way. Nobody in my family played golf. None of my friends played golf, but the pro at Riversdale Golf Club, which happened to be Bruce Green. It was Bruce Green's first job, and the sort of Bruce is a life member of the PGA
Yep.
and Hall of Famer, and he came and gave some clinics at our school, and I just we had a double oval, and he hit these shots from one end of one oval right across the other end, and I just sort of fell in love with the sound and the look of that, and
Yep.
we all had a try, of course, and none of us could hit the ball. And Bruce invited us over to Riversdale as caddies. And then if we caddied on the weekends, we were able to play a couple of nights a week after school. So that was a pretty good deal. We got paid $1.25 a round a caddy, by the way, and that was crap money even back then. But what a great way to get started. So he was an excellent player. He won some 4-round tournaments, and I'm a 12-year-old caddying at Riversdale and watching him practice and play, and that's how I fell in love with the game.
What was your junior and amateur career like?
Yeah, it's pretty good. Yeah, I won the Victorian under 14, 15 and 16 Victorian Schoolboys Championship. So
Nice.
then I played pennant for Riversdale. I was the youngest ever member to join Riversdale. They lowered the age from 18 to 14
To let you in.
and to let me in, yeah, because I was about to join Box Hill. So what was happening was all of the caddies, when they got to 14, had become really good players, and they were joining Box Hill up the road, which was just a bus trip up the road, because
Yeah.
Box Hill was letting juniors in at 14. So I had my papers in at Box Hill, and then I got a phone call. I thought I was in trouble. I got phone, no mobile phones back then, so the phone rang, and I was asked to come up to the golf club, and I thought I've just done something wrong when I'm caddying. Anyway, I got up there and they invited me to join the club, and I've been a member of some sort ever since then. So that was 1974, so 50 years ago.
So they had like regular caddies there for the members, did they?
Yep, yeah, we had about 20 in the 1970s. We had about 20 caddies. We had a caddy master, Sam Glover. He used to take a 25-cent clip off every job. So it was $1.50 for a caddy, and we got $1.25.
That's amazing. Can you talk about your coaching or PGA? You obviously did a traineeship.
I did my traineeship. I started in 1979. Bit of a fun story. I actually stopped playing for nearly 2 years.
Mm.
Um, uh, I got into a little bit of trouble. I when I say a little bit of trouble, I didn't have the right look and the right attitude to be conservative enough for Victorian amateur golf. I was playing guitar in bands, and I had long hair and earrings, and I had a bit of a hot temper on the golf course as well. So that combination, when I let a couple of clubs go, got me in a bit of trouble with the Victorian Golf Association. So I got booted. I didn't have a worse temper than anyone else, but I had the worst look of anyone else. So I
That's a
stopped
popular
playing.
look these days, Steve.
What's that?
The long hair and earrings, that's a lot. That's a popular look these days.
Yeah, well, it wasn't so popular in the late 1970s on the golf course. So my mum and dad started playing golf after following me around in my junior days. And Mum was a member at Riversdale, and she invited me or asked me if I'd come up and play a foursomes, mixed foursomes with her, which I did. And I think it was all set up, and the pennant manager came down just as we walked off the 18th hole. I hadn't played golf for nearly a couple of years, and a bit disillusioned with it, and thinking I was going to be the next Jimmy Page or something like that in a rock band. But the manager came down and said, "Would I like to play pennant?" And I thought, I actually really enjoyed playing and hitting the ball, and I played pennant that year. I thought I'd better get a couple of lessons. Never cut my hair. Still got the
Yeah.
long hair and the earrings. And my wife, almost my girlfriend back then, Kerry, I insisted she caddied for me. She was the first female to actually caddy in pennant
Yep.
at that stage. It all seems crazy when you think about it now, but I went and had some lessons of Jeff Flanagan, and so it went from basically December 1978 to playing pennant in about March '79 to I had some lessons off Jeff down at Huntingdale, and Jeff said I got a spot for a trainee opening up on the 1st of July. We used to have 2 intakes
Yeah.
back then, and went from not playing golf for a couple of years to falling in love with it, and Jeff waited until my first day of work, and he said, "Look, Steve," and I actually trimmed my hair back to shoulder length. I thought,
Yeah.
and changed my feather and my guitar to studs, and I thought I looked quite presentable. He waited for my first day at school, first day at school, first day at work at Huntingdale. He said, Jeff said to me, he said, "Look, Steve, I think the hair looks good and the earrings look good, but if they still look like that tomorrow, don't bother coming in for your second day."
Yeah.
So
Wow.
short back and sides, earrings out, and the golf career started.
What about your journey into coaching? How did that become?
Oh, look, sadly, like most people, I had a reasonable amount of success playing.
You were a good player, right?
Yeah, I had a chance of winning a few of the big tournaments. Won quite a few pro-ams and 2-round events and things like that, and had top tens in Opens and PGAs and Masters. But 1985, I had the I was coaching down at Elstonwick, just in between. I was exempt for the final stage of European Tour School, finished high enough from the Aussie Order of Merit, and I was planning on going to European Tour School at the end of the year, and the club job came up at Box Hill, coincidentally, and Trevor McDonald had been speaking to a couple of the committee over there, and Macca said to me, he said, "I reckon you should go for that job." I said, "I don't want to be a club pro. Why would I want to be a club pro?" And they said, "Oh, they're looking for somebody who's still going to play, and they've got a big bunch of juniors," which of course I knew about because Box Hill's always been, since I was a kid, always been terrific at promoting junior golf, and they want somebody who'll play, represent the club, and then coach the kids. So I thought I'll go and sit down with them, and sat down with them, and yeah, sure enough, they said, "Yeah, we'd love you if you want to play 10 or 12 weeks of the year and then coach the kids, as long as the shop's staffed properly, that we'd be interested in you, having a look at the job." So I went home, spoke to my wife, and we had some money put away for my European tour, and she basically said, "You want me to toss the coin? We take the club job and put a deposit on a house, or go to Europe." So anyway, so obviously I took the club job and we put a deposit on a house instead. And
Yeah.
the 14-year-old junior member at one of the 14-year-olds at Box Hill was Robert Allenby.
Oh, wow.
So I was still playing, and obviously, and we had a lot of really really good juniors, but Robert was obviously turned out to be the standout. So I was working with some of the top juniors. It turned out in the state and in the country with somebody like Robert. And 1988, I actually had a 2-shot lead in the Australian Masters as a club pro, which was 3 years later with 3 holes to play. And the massive fortuitous choke I had. I call it a fortuitous choke because had I not choked, had I gone on and won it, I would have got a start, or a couple of starts in Europe, a couple of starts in the US, because the Masters was big back then. There was 5 or 6 of the top 10 players in the world, Norman and
Yeah.
Faldo and Langer, were all playing, and here's this club pro 2 shots in front with 3 holes to play, and anyway, so that was a bit of a disaster the way I finished. But the following year, John Davis, who was the state coach, he gave me a call and said he's resigning, standing down as state coach, and he'd put my name forward to take over as state coach, which I did. And then the following year, the Victorian Institute of Sport introduced golf, and Dale Lynch and I, went for the job, and we both got it as head coach and assistant coach of the Institute of Sport, and then Stuart Appleby, Richard Green, Aaron Badley, Jeff Ogilvy.
It's produced some seriously good players.
That all came out of that. We've got, this is now how old we are. We've got 6 guys that we worked with as juniors who are now playing on the US Champions Tour.
You don't look that
and
old,
3
mate.
of them have got kids playing college golf.
Oh,
You
that's
go, "Oh my
amazing.
goodness!" So the same age as they were when we started working with them. But yeah, but had I not choked in that Masters, I would have missed that really important window of a couple of years that got me into.
And your whole life would have been different to what it is now.
Would have been very very different. And Yeah, my nervous system was never quite very good. I could play, but
Hmm.
my nervous system was just never quite settled down enough to be able to handle those real extreme pressure situations. But because dealing with that with my own play, I had a much more, I guess, objective and real life insight to what these young players are going to be
Go
feeling and
through.
experience, and how best for them to prepare and expect that you're going to be feeling like that at certain stages. So I kind of think I specialise in helping people deal with performing well under pressure.
Do you think for yourself, had you have been born 20, 30 years later and now this big emphasis on the mind and golf and sports performance, do you think your playing career would have been different?
Look, possibly, possibly,
Or do you
but
think that people are born to be able to deal with those situations and some people really try hard to be able to deal with them but just can't seem to break through sometimes?
look, I've got when my brother-in-law was he was a retired detective in the police force, and basically he said, you're profiling people under pressure, and this, you're born with people who run towards danger, and you're born people who run away from it, and then there's sort
Yeah.
of the ones in the middle that can be trained either way. But some are naturally drawn to it. They love that thrill and that excitement and that danger, and they don't think about consequence first, and the ones who thinks about possible consequence first, they tend to run away. And then you've got
Yeah.
the middle ground is trainable.
Hmm.
You don't know whether you want to run forward or run backwards, but
Yeah, okay.
when he explained, and that's what obviously when they're profiling people in for really dangerous jobs in the police force, that's where saying that's what they have to find out, whether you're going to
Yeah,
run
okay.
towards danger or run away from
Run
it.
away.
And see, even though it's only a game, that mindset is very much what we've got to look for in golf is the ones who run towards danger are the ones who are looking forward to Sunday afternoon
Yeah,
at
they
a
want the
major.
ball. They want to, if it was to put it in footy terms or whatever, like they want to be
I
the
want the
one that's
ball.
got 1 second on the clock and they've got to score a goal to, win sort of thing.
Yes.
It's, mate, as I guess groundbreaking or revolutionary as the VIS was, looking back now with all your experience, is there anything you would have changed? Because you guys did produce some of the best golfers in the world. Is there
Yeah.
anything
Well,
you sit back and go, wow, I would have done this differently now? Or
well, seven of them started as teenagers and ended up in the top 50 in world rankings. So that's
that's what I think is special because
mm,
there are some coaches that will get really good players handed to them, right?
yeah,
If you've got, I think it's always great. I love chatting with people that have had a teenager turn up and they've managed to get them to the PGA Tour. Like I think that's a phenomenal story.
yeah, yeah. Well, that's people obviously had a lot of success with players who were already good players, which you could say I helped add a little bit of polish to their game. Somebody like KJ Choi, for instance. But yeah, with
Yeah.
Stuart and Robert, I started working with both of them as teenagers, and both of them ended up in the top 10 in the world, and both won $30 million US in their careers. So that was. That's pretty special because
Pretty
and I'm
satisfying, right?
still good friends with both of them. I still coach Stuart playing on the Champions Tour, and I'm in regular contact. I'm going out to a dinner when Rob's out in Australia next week with Rob Allenby. So still good friends all these years later. So it's great.
What does coaching apples look like now, though? Are you traveling much to events or is it more
No,
remote?
not no, mostly online. I've been going over there once a year for a couple of weeks, and we do a lot of stuff. Talk regularly most weeks. We talk regularly, send videos back and forth to each other. It's look managing the change. And Stuart's in his early 40s. Basically had a herniated disc and blew out his back, and then had surgery, and things have never quite been the same. And sort of we've been chasing that, and obviously that did some damage to his confidence, particularly with his driving. But we're still working on getting him back. He wants to win again. I mean, he finished top
Yeah.
36 on the Champions Tour again this year, won about 800,000 US. Most people would go, that'll be all right just for 1 year, but he's not happy with that. So he's still in the
Wow.
gym. He's still in the gym most days. He's still on the practice fairway most days, and he's still as hungry as he was when he was a kid.
How does that go? This is kind of off script. We had a list of questions, as the listeners know, that I like to work through. How does it go working through this? Like, he's obviously had surgery and all that sort of stuff for his back, I'm guessing.
Yes.
How do you go as a coach working through that? Are you seeking advice off other industry professionals to sort of see how the body can work?
Look, you've really got to, you've got to trust the experts when it comes
Yeah,
to all that sort of stuff. The golf coaches who have a really good sound biomechanical understanding of the golf swing. Some of them, I know personally, and have had discussions with them. And especially when you're talking about twisting and flexion and extension and putting your back under load, patterns that you might be able to change in the golf swing to take the stress off that area and pick up the load in some other part of your body that's less likely to get hurt. Yeah, there's a lot of science goes into that, and that's been
into it.
around for quite some time. A time at the Institute of Sport, because you're dealing with gymnasts and divers and all the sports science around that. It's all holistic, 360-degree movement. So,
Yeah,
when I started at the Institute of Sport, I virtually knew nothing about the body, and then most weeks all the coaches had to either present or go to a presentation. So you start to ask a lot of questions about movement, but yeah, particularly gymnastics and diving and those sorts of sports, you start to understand how the body moves, and then I start to see things, or did start to see things in the golf swing that potentially are going to lead to problems. But the biggest problem we have in the golf swing is when you've got somebody like Stuart Appleby who's still quite happy to hit balls for 5 or 6 hours a day.
yeah,
It's like any machine; it's just going to wear out.
correct.
Mm.
Wow. Mate, looking back on your coaching career the last 30 plus years, what are some of the key milestones that stand out for you or memories?
Oh, look, there's been a lot of Rob Allenby's first win on the US tour.
Yeah,
That was huge. That came after Stewart's first win on the US tour, but Stewart had his first win in I can't even remember the years now, but I think it was 97, and Robert not long afterwards. But Stewart's I wasn't there for Stewart's first win, but I was there for Robert's first win, and that was really special. That was a 4-hole playoff in Houston against Craig Stadler,
yeah,
and that was great. Stewart's 59 to win at the Greenbrier after a really lean patch, and won comeback player of the year. And I was actually there for that. See
yeah.
him shoot the 59, come from 7 behind, and shoot a 59 to win. That was special. KJ's 2010 Players Championship was huge. The reason that was huge is because we'd been working on a particular shot that KJ really struggled with, and it was
Mm,
basically the if into a left to right when KJ much preferred a left to right ball flight,
mm.
but into a headwind left to right, he always struggled with that shot. He'd either pull it or it'd lose the ball right. So and because he was aware of that, he could never go anywhere near a pin. So we were working for quite some time on this little draw shot. Anytime we had an into left to the right breeze, we're just practicing this little 3/4 draw shot with a 9-iron,
Mm.
and thinking specifically for the 17th hole
Sawgrass.
at Sawgrass for that front right pin on
Yeah,
on Sunday, because that's where the wind always is. And if you pull it left, now you've got to somehow two putt over that ridge. Anyway, so KJ preferred fade, but we'd been working on this draw. So 15th hole that last day, he hit a draw into the back left pin, into a left to right wind, into about 10 feet. And that was a great shot. And David Toms actually hit it over the back. He got it up and down. KJ missed the putt. But that was kind of his little rehearsal. So he got around to 17, and the wind was exactly. So he started this 9-iron at the pin, turned it away from the pin, and let the wind hold it up, and the ball dropped down about 15 feet short, and he made the putt. And then Tom's birdied the last, and then KJ had to go back to 17 again. But that time he was a bit more conservative. Actually, hit it in the middle of the green and took his two putts and won the playoff. So that was a special one because I know that we'd been working on that particular shot with that tournament in mind. If you had that chance on a Sunday, and he
pulled it
actually
off.
pulled it off, yeah.
I guess the shot into 15 would have been confidence boosting
Yes.
going into 17, right? So you would have, yeah, that's awesome. We're welcoming a new partner to the Your Golf Performance podcast. This will be a performance analytics partner, Circles, or Draw More Circles as you may know them, the ultimate tool for tracking your golf progress. Whether you're a junior golfer, college player or coach, the everyday club golfer, or a golf professional, Draw More Circles allows you to easily track and analyze your performance like never before. With their innovative performance analytics, you get insights into your game that go far beyond just the scorecard. From strokes gain metrics to detailed reports on every aspect of your play, you can pinpoint exactly where to focus your practice to improve faster. One of the best features that I've found with Circles is the course management tool, which will take your physical data to help you navigate around the course smarter. They're actually taking your stats that you've entered into the system and helping you strategically play a better game of golf. Plus, it's perfect for coaches who want to keep track of their players' development and offer data-driven advice. If you can't measure it, you're guessing. The best part is that as you are one of my listeners, you'll get exclusive access to their services through our partnership. These prices are too hot to mention, and I'll need you to email me. My email address is brentdalegolf@gmail.com, or feel free to message me on Instagram at brentdalegolf. We welcome Circles to the team. Look, with all the advancements in the game that you would have seen over your coaching career, like with technology, what hasn't changed for you as a coach?
Well, what hasn't changed for me as a coach is my priorities of the golf swing, and I learnt this off Jeff Flanagan. Jeff Flanagan, who I did my traineeship under. Jeff's story was he was a very good player and got the yips with his backswing. He couldn't get the club away. In fact, the only way Jeff could play socially, his tournament career was over, was to actually basically swing the club forward like a tennis serve, swing it back over the top of the ball and step in and hit it.
Wow.
So Jeff had a huge emphasis in his coaching on the backswing being a backswing. The moment you go down the takeaway path, you start to move, manipulate, or do any of those things. That's when you're going to get yourself. And he taught that based on his own experience. So
Yeah.
you've got to swing the club away. So I learnt that when I was a trainee. The backswing is exactly that. It's got to be a swing. And then we tap into our natural athleticism when we're thinking swing the club back rather than take the club away. Look, I use all the technology, but my emphasis has always been it's got to be a swing and you've got to make solid contact. And
Yes.
that solid contact and swing the golf club, wouldn't matter what amount of technology's there. If you're not doing that, then you're really going to struggle because you're moving away from what some people say, and I believe that we evolved to be. We're very efficient throwing machines, human beings, and we actually that's why kids start throwing their food around. They're not thinking I'm going
Yeah.
to be naughty here, throwing
Yeah.
the toys out of the cot. Maybe that's being naughty, but we're getting ready to throw. So, and a throw is basically a swing, and and that's when we get away from what's almost instinctive to us, then you're going to struggle. And that's what a lot of the technology has taken us away from that. But it's going full circle. Now we're getting back to full movement, understanding ground forces and understanding biomechanical flow. But the great players throughout history have kind of understood that intuitively anyway.
You think a lot of people these days, golfers, are just so hell bent on hitting perfect positions and they lose the, I guess, authenticity of their body movement?
Absolutely. And look,
Yeah.
it's been around for a long time. As long as once the cameras got clever and were able to take a video and take still shots with no blur to it, we started seeing that. And we in the golf industry, we labelled it all. P1 through 10.
Yeah.
10 positions. That's our standard. You've got to know all the positions. But
Mm.
our first camera at the Institute of Sport was a Vicon system. It was a 3-camera system for 3D, but it was a $100,000 system and it took 100 frames a second.
Mm.
Now, my iPhone takes 240 frames a second,
Correct.
but this is something that I've understood since the very early 90s when I went to a European coaching conference with Professor Alistair Cochrane, In Search of the Perfect Golf Swing. He and Stobbs wrote that in the early 60s. And the golf swing from takeaway to impact takes 1 second on average for most, good players. So 1 second from takeaway, here's me calling it takeaway, from start of backswing to
Yeah.
impact, 3/4 of a second is in the backswing and 1/4 of a second in the downswing.
Hmm.
So we can now take 240 positions and write a paragraph or two on each of those 240 positions to help golfers become better golfers in that 1 second from takeaway to downswing. Tell me who that's going to help.
No one.
No one. All right. Conscious thought's normally about 1/10 of a second delay. So
Yeah.
now you've only got 0.9 of a second. And you better be thinking about what you want to happen at 1/10 of a second before it actually creates any type of response. Yeah. So
Well, well,
that's where technology set the game back a long way.
look, I probably 6 years ago now, the club that I work at invested and they got, a launch monitor, and I've used Body Track, or I've owned Body Track for a few years now, and I own Putt Lab. And I remember using it for every session that I gave and for a period of time there. And then one week I woke up and I said, I'm going to have a tech free week this week. I'm just going to coach, you know, the way I guess I was taught. Like, I got lessons. My dad's friend, you might remember this name, Sid Cowling. I don't
Yes.
know if you
Yeah.
remember. Yeah,
Yeah.
so that was
Remember the
one of
name.
my dad's great friends. And early days, I saw Sid. And then I moved on to see Alan Bull, who was at the Australian,
Yeah.
sidekick with Gary Barter. And, you know, so my coaching kind of evolved from, what I learnt off Alan down at the Aussie. And I found just seeing the numbers all the time, not that I was getting confused, but you start losing like I, I don't know how to explain it, but I felt like I was getting worse as a coach, constantly looking at those things. And now I pull it out
Mhm.
every now and again. Like, if I've got a student, their body's moving the way that I want it to, I'm like, hey, let's just capture a bit of data and see where it's at, and then
Yeah.
I won't use it again for 4 or 5 lessons. Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
Oh, look, absolutely. Look, all of the young coaches that I've worked with, and the players as well, who've got, I've got players who travel with their TrackMan or some type of launch monitor, and they've got all the tech. For years I've tried to emphasise that the shots cause the numbers, not the numbers that cause the shots.
Mm,
So hit a shot that you like, and then go and see what that is. And then that
yeah.
just becomes a benchmark for you, rather than trying to hit these numbers that supposedly create the perfect shot. Now we've done sessions of, and we get so wound up in the numbers, or like 2-3 degrees. Oh no, I'm 2-3 degrees inside. Well, every second is 6 degrees.
Mm,
When I say that, to say, have a look at your watch. That's 6 degrees. 1 second
yeah.
is 6 degrees, and you're worried about 2 degrees. And you say, oh, really? Yeah, well, there's 360 degrees in a
Yep.
circle. So, let's hit a little soft draw, soft fade, and straight shot. And generally, in between those soft draw, soft fade, and straight shot for a talented player, you're talking about 12 degrees difference in path.
Mm.
So it's
Have you, with the best players that you've been around and the technology, have you actually seen numbers that seem to be the most efficient for people, or is everyone different?
no, the numbers that are most consistent are the ones that are most consistent. They're
Yeah.
they're the most efficient ones, the ones that can reproduce the same angle of attack, the same path, the same face to path, and basically it's centered contact, so pretty much the same ball speed. And
Mm.
that's when they can manage their distance control and their trajectory.
Yep.
We have always spent a lot of time trying to manage trajectory and distance control, and of course most ranges. I know there's a lot more emphasis on distance these days, but distance control and trajectory control, from practicing alongside Tiger and seeing that for all the years that he was working always on trajectory. So you can't
Mm.
control your distance because the ball speed's going to be pretty consistent. You can't control your distance until you can control your trajectory. So he's
Trajectory.
always talking about controlling his trads, and that's what he's talking about. In
Mm.
doing that, then you can start to hit fine pins on greens and hit the ball pin high.
That's what he was so good at, right?
Yeah, that's what he's so good at. But the backstory to that is he'd spend hours on the range trying to get his trajectory right, which is the right peak flight, so it's got the right land angle and the right spin rate. But most of it he did it by eye.
Mm.
But yeah, he was unbelievable with his distance control. He's not the only one. I mean, probably the
Yeah.
second best to him for about a 10-year period, and this is in Mark Brodie's Every Shot Counts, was Robert Allenby.
Mm.
You
How
know,
did you
it's,
make him such a good ball striker?
oh, look, how did I make Robert such a good ball striker? Funny story. Look, nearly every great ball striker and player I've worked with has come from a background which you wouldn't say is ideal. You know, what is ideal? Having all the technology around you on a driving range mat is somehow ideal. Well,
Yeah,
that's where
maybe,
people
maybe not.
try to create the
Yeah.
perfect golf swing. Well, Robert started playing with my dad when my dad used to play with Robert's dad when he was 7 at golf course East Malvern or Malvern Valley. Very wet in winter, so he's 7 years of age playing with his dad's clubs. He's weedy, skinny little kid, and he's swinging around an adult club on muddy ground. Now, two things. He started using his every bit of muscle he had at that stage, so he created very much a rotary motion with his body. And he
Yep.
was, like a kid swinging a sledgehammer around. But
Yeah.
also because it was muddy, often when the club had hit the ground, the ball had the mud had splashed up and hit him in the face. So he learnt to turn his head through
There you go.
and that's his famous head rotation on the way through. So Annika Sorensen, David Duval, there's a few players that are really noticeable. Everyone's got a bit of head rotation, but Roberts was quite noticeable. But anyway, I asked him only a couple of weeks ago. I said, "Rob, do you remember your first lesson?" He said, "Yeah." He said, "You tried to get me to keep my head down." It was when he was 14.
Hmm.
No, I said, "I didn't try to keep your head down. I said I tried to keep your eye on the ball until impact."
Hmm.
Anyway, we tried that for about 3 or 4 shots, and he started hitting 6 inches behind it.
Hmm.
And I said, "Oh, don't worry about it." And he said, "I can see the ball. I can see the ball." I said, "You couldn't possibly see the ball unless you've got an eyeball above your right ear."
Yeah.
And he said, "I'm telling you," he said, "I can see the ball." But that's when I realised the genius that I was, gifted with
Yeah.
Robert Allenby was in his mind's eye. He could actually see the club making contact with the ball and the ball leaving the club. Of course, he
Hmm.
couldn't see it, but he was convinced he could. And so, if it wasn't for the mud, if it wasn't for swinging a club that was too heavy for him, who knows how he still would have been brilliant. But yeah, so and then
You
people,
know, sorry.
yeah,
It really makes me like, I'm not sure if you've heard of Matt Green, one of the golf physios here in Australia. He works on the PGA Tour a fair bit, works with our New South Wales high performance team.
yeah, I've heard his name. I've
Yeah, so
never come.
Greeny does a fair bit of work with some of my kids through my program, and I remember 10 or 12 years ago he come to our golf course, and it's a range. It's not spectacular. We've got a range there. It's a little bit uneven, and I said to him, "Look, sorry, it's not flat." And he said, "Some would say this is the best learning ground for kids or for anyone, right?" And
Yeah,
what I've evolved with my coaching now is if someone doesn't, you know, I guess transfer or get across to the lead side better, I'll go and put them on a downslope.
yeah,
Because if they don't do it, they're going to bottom out way earlier and they're going to catch it fat. And I just think you can, I reckon sometimes the young kids get overcoached these days.
they
Whereas
do.
when I was young, I'd go out and have to learn myself. Like, what have I, like you're saying, the Robert Allenby story, right? He's got a big, heavy club. It's too long for him. He's probably going to bottom out. So he learned how to use his body more efficiently. He
Yeah,
moved his head. Like that's a that's the environment creating the player, right?
correct. Yeah.
Yeah, it's and like what you just said. Some would say a mat with all the technology is the right environment. I just don't think it is sometimes.
No, look, it's not. Well, look, another story which I totally understood years later was KJ didn't start playing golf till he was nearly 16.
Wow.
And Wando Island off South Korea had a grand total of no golf courses or driving ranges when he started playing golf. So he started playing golf because his gym instructor at the start of the year, him and a group of other boys, was given. He gave him a few clubs, bucket of balls, and Jack Nicklaus My Way, obviously translated into Korean, and basically said, this semester or whatever it was, you guys are doing golf. And KJ says he swears he said to the boy next to him, he said, "What's golf?" And the and he said, "Oh, that's that thing on television with the sticks." Oh, well, why would you know what golf is if there's no golf course on the island?
No, that's right.
So he grew up on the island swimming and playing soccer, and he was doing a lot of weightlifting. He wanted to be a power lifter, and anyway, so they went over on the back of the clay tennis court and hit balls off the clay tennis court, and KJ made contact with this 7-iron out the middle of the club, and he said the feeling of the ball coming off the middle of the club, he said, I just fell in love with that.
Wow.
So KJ, when the tide was in, would just draw a line on the clay, and he still does this drill, and not on the car, not that European clay like the French Open. It was actually a German clay, the fine dusty stuff that you have to water down. And he'd hit balls out into a field, and when the tide was out, he'd do it with the ball below his feet up the beach, and then the ball above his feet coming back the other way. Just make pure contact. Now, every year KJ has a camp that runs for about 8 weeks with his foundation kids, and I'll send you the video. Lines and lines and lines of these kids just doing this drill,
That drill.
learning to. And I was standing next to Jae Kwon, a Korean coach who is master taekwondo as well as a golf coach. So there's a nice combo. And
Wow.
Jay's English is very good. And I said, KJ's yelling at this kid. Jay, what? He sounds a bit angry. He said, oh, no, he's not yelling at him. Well, he is yelling at him, but he's just saying, I can hear you thinking from here. Stop thinking, just hit the line.
Hey, it's funny you say that. My trainee's Korean.
Yeah.
And, he's becoming a pretty good coach. But I walked in the shop a few months back and said to my other pros, geez, he sounds like he's abusing those people out there.
Yeah.
But I think it's just their culture, right? The way they talk sometimes can be quite. It sounds rude, but I think they're just all used to it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Jay Kwon, he doesn't have to yell at them. And look, when he speaks, you've never seen kids stand up straight. And when he speaks to them, he jokes, he says, because they know I can kill them with this. It helps to be master taekwondo as well as a golf coach.
Wow. For all the coaches that are tuning in, what would you say now, looking back, makes a good golf coach? What would you suggest that the younger ones make sure they learn to get better at?
You become a good golf coach when you still love the game yourself. That's most important. And you try everything and try to understand everything, but try to hit shots. Try to learn how to hit shots and truly understand what changes ball flight, what things can be done to, use off-speed shots, half shots, three-quarter shots, full shots, and shape the ball around. All the different lies. And as a player, as a coach, even though you might never get to elite level at it, you nearly need to understand. How can you teach something if you truly don't understand it and you don't love it? You don't love it yourself. I'm 64 now. I still wake up every morning and I've got about 5 or 6 YouTube people that I subscribe to, from biomechanics to golf coaches that I like, to do some physical conditioning for golf, to mental stuff for golf. I mean, every day I still get up and I actually get excited about, what am I going to learn? What am I going to learn today?
You'll never stop learning in this game, will you?
Yeah, so never stop learning, but really be, once you fall out of love with the game, it's hard to inspire someone else to love the game.
I love it. So going on this now, we're some sort of, trying to gather some info for some coaches out there, right? How would you manage all the different personalities? Obviously, you've dealt with some of the best, and they're all going to act a little differently when given information or, given adversity. How do you manage that as a coach?
Well, yeah, it's sort of the science and the logic of trying to pigeonhole people's learning styles and personalities. Yeah, there's visual learners and there's kinesthetic learners and there's auditory learners, and the fact is we all learn with all of those instincts. Some are more prone to others, but you have to find out their learning style, what they best respond to. Robert Allenby best responded to, don't tell me, just tell me what shot I need to practice to improve this. So if Robert was come back from Europe, for instance, and he was getting a little bit steep and a little bit ahead of it because he's been knocking it down in the wind for a few months, I'd get him to hit some high draws with no divot. and just hit high draws with no divot. And he wouldn't never ask how to hit high draws with no divot because he'd been doing it since he was a kid anyway.
Yeah, right.
And then he might go, "Oh, I'm getting ahead of it again, am I?" But it was just
Sounds very simple, right?
yeah. But that's so every one of the 9 shots, low, medium, high, draw, fade, straight, actually creates a pattern that will correct or adjust something back to where you want it to be. So if you're over the top and steep, well, hit a high draw. See if you can hit a high draw over the top and steep. So hit the shot rather than try not to be over the top and steep. Now, Robert always responded very well to that, where Stuart would be, you have to explain it to him. For him, his brain, until he actually understands it, he doesn't even want to entertain it. But
Yeah,
then
right.
once he understands it, he's not technical about it. He's here, oh, okay, I get that. I'll give that. Now, many times we had, quite vibrant discussions. And I remember once Stuart said, I said, "Yeah, Stuart, you're just becoming uncoachable. You're just questioning everything I say."
Yeah.
And he just looked at me and said, "Will you find a way?" So hang on a second. You're the one that's uncoachable. No, you find a
You've got
way.
to
You're
work
the
around it.
coach.
Yeah.
And I thought that was that really. We're still working together all these years later. But I understood that I was trying to get him to be just do it, and he said, "I'm not doing it until you explain it to me or until I
Mm.
understand it." So totally different style again to Robert, but I had to understand that Robert didn't want to know, and Stuart did want to know. So you've got to learn to know how players respond best, and then get on with wanting to work hard at it. I've had players who don't like to compete in practice. They don't like to test and challenge themselves in practice, and you have to find a way to get them to compete and challenge themselves in practice, or otherwise, when it comes down to it, these goals they've got of wanting to perform well under pressure, it's never going to happen. So some like the idea of a test.
Mm.
Some like the idea of a game. So if they don't like the test, we just turn it into a game.
To a game.
Yeah. So that's it's the same outcome, but finding their, if I'm saying I want you to go over and do this 100-ball skill test, there's no way I'm going to do that.
Mm.
Someone like Richard Green used to hate the 100-ball skill test, but in the Institute of Sport days, he held the record. But if I said to Richard, I want you to go over there and do a head-to-head shot shaping competition against somebody, and then go and have a game, in a bunker comp or whatever it might be, he'd love that sort of stuff. So it's the
Yeah, right.
same outcome,
Yeah.
but different approach to it.
It's good to hear. I love putting my students under, like, not every lesson has to be a swing change lesson. You could be out there working, and I'm big on games and points and all that sort of stuff, because they're sort of practicing under pressure. When they go play a tournament, they've kind of already practiced with the shaky hands, because they're playing against their mate for a chocolate bar or a drink or something like that. So, and all the good players that I've had on here over the years sort of say a lot of their practice as kids was, competing against other kids.
I
And
don't think there's an exception to it, Brent.
yeah,
If I said, how do you know who's going to be the gun and who's going to be the almost gun? The gun is always the one who runs towards it, and that's
mm,
give me a
yeah,
competition, give me a challenge, give me the ball. Which
I
we
want
talked
it.
about at the
Yeah,
start of our chat. And the best way to find out is to throw those challenges and games and skills tests out there and see who runs towards it, and then
yeah,
you can sort them out pretty quick right from the get go. And the
yeah,
ones who are a little bit reluctant, which I was mentioning just a moment ago, then they might be reluctant because they don't like the structure of the test. But if you can gamify it for them,
mm,
they'll still get the same result.
I love it.
Your golf ball is the most technologically advanced, or it's not. Your golf ball is either the most consistent, or it's not. It's the most trusted, or it's not. The fact is, it's either Titleist, the best performing golf ball in the world, or it's not. Prove it for yourself. Titleist, the #1 ball in golf. What will you play?
How did you balance making sort of swing changes with students when they could be playing so many events per year?
Yeah, look, it's really tough, and it's always been tough. And you really just have to prioritise. You might play well for the next couple of months, but if we really want to go down this path of of making the swing change, there's every chance that you're going to struggle. So if they buy into that, you can then make the swing change. But if they don't buy into it, then you recommend that we try and find an off-season time to work on it. Or we sort of park it if we're making that swing change by practicing a certain shot that's changing that pattern, or using a lie, as you've mentioned before. We've got 8 lies, basically ball above our feet, below our feet, left low, right low, and the 4 points in between. I mean, each one of those 8 lies is like each one of those 9 shots. It's going to, in time, it's going to change the pattern, because your dynamic balance is always trying to work out, how do I work with this slope? So you might be doing that on a daily basis in the laboratory, but you're not going to bring it out into play until you've tested it.
Yeah.
And then once you've tested it, then you see, oh, actually, my swing has changed. It has changed, but that hasn't affected the rest of my game, because I haven't been trying to use that particular thing that I've been practicing in competition. So you can keep playing with what you've got, and then you can, in the laboratory, you can be doing this stuff over on the side until you get it, and then test it and go, oh, I can actually hit that shot when I need to. And if it's particularly if it's a lie shot. I mean, I get all my students to practice all of those 8 lies.
Yeah.
Unless you're playing it, and there's your driving range mat again. I mean, I've had kids, young people come along and go a bit bored with my practice. And geez, I say, you must have been busy. And they said, what do you mean? Well, you said you're bored with your practice. I said, there's 11 shot categories. So we've got driver, fairway, woods, long irons, mid irons, short irons, chipping, pitching, putting, and long, mid, and short, chipping, pitching, bunkers, long, mid, and short putts. There's 11 categories. There's 9 shot shapes with each of those 11 categories. There's 8 lies with each of those 11.
How'd you get bored?
And there's 8 different winds. I said, if you add all that up together, we haven't even talked about grass, altitude, temperature, and I said, there's about 6,000 skills. If you actually add all that up in golf. Now, nobody's ever going to master all 6,000 skills, but it's like the difference between chopsticks when you first learn piano and Beethoven's Fifth, quite a few years down the track, and everything in between is golf.
When you would, I know you just sort of spoke about all the different, the 8 different lies and the 9 different shots, but say you did have a swing change to make, and the reason I'm asking this, I was sitting at Royal Pines Golf Club probably, God, I don't know, somewhere between 14 to 18 years ago, and I think you won Australian Coach of the Year. I can't remember if you were in the room or if you did it via video hookup, and you were talking about students making swing changes, and you said, some students, I'll say, I want you to do this 50 times a day for the next, 3 weeks. And KJ Choi said, I'll do all 1,000 now.
Yeah.
Is that fair dinkum? Was he that type of worker?
Oh, unbelievable. See, KJ started at nearly 16. When he was 19, he had to go and do 2 years of national service. So he lost another 2 years. And then by 30, he's got his US tour card and moves into the top 50 in the world. So nothing about that is how did KJ do that? Well, for a start, when they was doing his national service, the psych profiled him and basically they were training him shooting, so he had the potential to be a sniper. So he had the mindset to be able to focus on a target and shut out all outcome and then just execute. So that kind of helps if you've got that already built into your DNA. Such a gentle-natured guy. I don't think he'd ever be shooting anybody, but when it comes to, he's not very gentle when it comes. That's where he got the nickname the Tank, not just because of his build, but when KJ was coming on the back 9, he was just going to roll over everything.
Fearless.
Yeah. And he won the British Senior Open this year, same thing. He just came home like a train. It's still in there.
What separates the best? You've been around great players, but what separates the guys that can go out and win event after event? Let's just look at it now, like a Scotty Scheffler, right? What separates someone like him to someone that's, just making up the numbers? You know what I mean? Like they hover around the bubble.
It's the ability to be totally in the now. Bernard Langer's, this year with Scotty Scheffler and Bernard Langer. I mean, Bernard Langer, he's 67, just won the Tour Championship, broke his age 3 times in 4 rounds, and it's just his 120th tournament win. People like, and Scheffler will get to 120 tournament wins as well if he doesn't hurt himself. He looks like he's going to hurt himself sometime in the near future with that move he makes. But people like that have the ability to be totally in the now. So when we're talking about concentration, there's ones that can almost concentrate and ones who can truly concentrate. So there's nothing in the past and nothing in the future. They're totally in the present. And because there's nothing in the future, they're not outcome orientated at all, which means they're not feeling. So all anxiety is based on thinking about in the future. If you're in the total now, there's no anxiety. So worried about hitting it out of bounds or missing a green is your mind's in the future. Worrying about the last bad shot you hit, what went wrong there, is in the past.
Yeah.
So the Langers and the Schefflers and the Tiger Woods of the world are able to produce that level of being in the now, that total mindfulness every single week, on every single shot. KJ called it SFT from 7 Days in Utopia, which he actually played a cameo role in the movie with Robert Duvall. He was the villain golfer, TKO. He had this boxing glove on his driver. But the book 7 Days in Utopia tells the story of a young pro who just loses his mind, drives off into the country, throws the clubs out the window, gets into this country town, this cranky old person, he runs into him, which is played by Robert Duvall in the movie, and it takes him through this whole process of rebuilding him mentally by chucking horseshoes and things like that around. But basically SFT is see it, feel it, trust it. And KJ, every shot, he wants to see the shot in his mind's eye. He wants to feel the swing that's going to cause that shot. And then the tick is the trust. And it does not let his mind, when he trusts, that means he's totally in the now. All he's trying to produce is what he sees and feels with no thought to the outcome. And that's how players like that are able to perform at that level under that pressure every single time.
I don't think I've enjoyed a chat as much as what I'm having right now. This has been great so far.
I've got to tell you, most of this I learned from the players that I was lucky enough to work with too.
Oh no, of course. I think just being able to sit here. If you had told me 15 years ago when I was watching you, when I was at Royal Pines at that coaching conference, like if you had told me 15 years you'll be able to sit down with him and have a real good chat and pick his brain, I wouldn't have believed you, right? I think it's a privilege to be able to sit here and listen to some of this stuff, mate. So thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Let's talk about your coaching at the Masters. I'm obsessed with the Masters. We had a bit of a chat off air, but also some of the majors. You want to just rattle through some of the numbers?
I've coached at over 40 majors, 19 Masters. The first major I coached at was my most favourite one because I was with my very good buddy and I stayed in the house with him that week, was when Ian Baker Finch won the 91 British Open. So to actually be in the house with one of your mates that you've played with for, quite a few years. We'd met 10 years earlier and we played a lot of golf together. And it was about 7 or 8 years before that I was with him when he set the goal to win the British Open, and to be there when he actually does win the British Open was very special.
Yeah.
And that if I could have just hung the hat up then. So and I wouldn't say that I coached Ian, but we practiced and played a lot together, and I helped him out with a few things as he helped me out with a few things. But in the 1988 Masters, the one that I nearly won, that I was working with Ian that week, and he ended up beating Craig Parry and Roger Mackay in a playoff in that Masters, and I was actually working with Ian that weekend.
So you've been helping him with his game that week.
I helped him with his game, and he said to me afterwards, he said, "You were serious when we were practicing when you said you thought you could win this week." And I said, "Yeah, I was." Yeah.
So, what was it like getting to the US Masters as a coach?
That was the first US Masters was with Ian Baker Finch in '93 as a coach, and I was on the range and with Finchy, and I'm just the goosebumps. Well, you've been there, Brent.
Yeah.
You're just there, and I'm on the range, and Finchy's hitting balls, and it's Monday or Tuesday, and I look down the range and I go, 7 major winners in a row. Have a look at this, Finchy. There's 7 major winners in a row. Anyway, he turns around and goes, 8, you bastard. I forgot to count him. That's just it's the kid in the candy store. You're standing there, and I remember it was Couples and Crenshaw and Davis Love and Craig Stadler and who else was there? Sandy Lyle, might have been Nick Faldo. They're just all lined up one after the other. Where do you see them all just lined up, just being like regular people hitting balls, having a chat? It was early in the week and all major winners.
And what was the best result that one of your students might have had there?
Oh, Stuart was still tied for the lead on KJ. KJ nearly won it 3 times. KJ had the lead standing on the 13th the year, hitting his second shot into 13. He had the lead. That was the year that Mickelson won. KJ had the lead 3 times in the last round, but 5th was the best he finished, and Stuart was tied for the lead on 12, 2007, 2008. Hit the green, trickled back down the water, made double, and I think he finished 5th or 6th or something like that. But that was that at the Masters. Yeah, but it was pretty exciting. So I mean, about four times I was there where I had players who actually had the lead.
Yeah, that's amazing.
On the back 9 on Sunday, yeah. So and then
do you get nervous with that sort of stuff?
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. There you go.
It's look. I get more nervous. Well, I get more nervous when I've got the club. These days, I only get nervous when I haven't got a club in my hand. But sometimes when you feel like you feel like you're so much into it.
They work so hard for it, right?
Yes. Yeah. And I know what the guys are thinking and feeling, and then you just hope. There's so many things have got to go right to win a major, and and then KJ Players Championship was good as a major. Obviously, it's the strongest field every year, but he had a good lead in the British Open, the one that Harrington won. I think he had about a 2-shot lead at one stage there, and didn't quite go on with that. So it was great that he won the Senior British Open this year.
Amazing.
But, yeah.
Now, did you put the white overalls on and you caddied for KJ in the 2015 Masters?
Yeah, pretty sure it was 2015. Might have been 2014, 2015. Alistair Squirrel, his caddy, fell off his motorbike the week before, and it's quite a process because the caddy has to be registered and basically approved, and they go through this process. And then Alistair fell off his motorbike the weekend before. KJ and I got there on the Sunday, and he gets a phone call that Alistair can't caddy. And he goes, "Well, you're it." Because it's not like you can grab it. KJ could have grabbed he could have got one
Locals.
of the Augusta caddies.
Yeah.
But no, he said, yeah, so I caddied.
How did that, how'd you go from, you've obviously mentally prepared to be the coach for the week, and then all of a sudden you coach and you caddy?
Oh, look, we spent a lot of time with the caddies going through how they caddy. What sort of yardages, how they whether they get involved in reading the greens, what their player likes and dislikes, and all of that type of stuff. So I'd spent a lot of time with the caddies, and there's always a lot of discussions with the caddies about how best to deal with certain situations with the players. So I kind of slipped into the role pretty well.
Double pay that week,
But
Steve.
what a hard course to caddy. I mean, even though I was still a member at Riversdale, it's a very hilly course. Lugging a bag around that golf course is
I think that's the first thing that I noticed when I went there. I just couldn't believe, you see it on TV,
yeah,
but the tee shot on 10.
yeah,
Like, I don't think TV can actually show it well enough, just how downhill and just how sweeping left that tee shot is down there.
yes, yeah.
It's amazing.
And then,
What about
well, I think a lot of people kind of see how far downhill that is, but then the 18th hole basically mirrors it coming back the other
coming
way.
back uphill?
So
Yeah,
you've got to come
it's a
back up
tough
that hill with
walk.
a dog leg right coming back up the hill. So
Yeah. What about 2009 caddying for Apples, Stuart Appleby in the Australian Masters when Tiger was here and it was Tiger Mania basically in Australia? What was that experience?
well, look, we knew Tiger well because Tiger was still living at same estate as Stuart. I know the house and the fire hydrant that he crashed his Escalade into very well. That's right at the end of the range at Isleworth. So, yeah, so from my point of view, being around Tiger was pretty normal. But the Pro-Am was the funniest thing. Stuart, we teed off the what's normally the 7th at Kingston Heath. They play it as the 10th or 11th in the inner course, the tournament course, and Stuart, there was a shotgun. No, it was. Oh, it must have been. Yeah, it was a shotgun. This Pro-Am. So Stuart was off first, and then Tiger was off second. So Stuart's got his group, and of course everyone's there waiting for Tiger in the Pro-Am. They're 10 deep either side of the 7th fairway, right round the tee. And
Yeah.
Stuart's got his 3 Pro-Am partners, and Tiger's walked onto the tee, and the amateurs haven't hit off yet. And there's just people everywhere. So now these poor old amateurs have, Stuart's piped his down the middle, and these 3 amateurs have now got to, with Tiger's
Off in front
crowd,
of Tiger.
and then Tiger's standing on the tee, and he's having a chat to Apples. They're just chatting away casually like they do. And this poor amateur, he's trying to tee up his ball, and he's just shaking that much. The ball just keeps falling off the tee. He can't put it on the tee. So in the end, he just leaves it off the ground and goes back to his bag and pulls his hybrid out and hits it straight off the end of the toe, straight into a guy's guts about 5 metres in front of him. And he proceeded throughout the round to hit about 6 people, this poor guy. It was just,
Wow.
it was just shocking. But
It actually could be quite dangerous, those Pro-Am, when the crowds are
I
deep.
wouldn't want to be in the front row, that's for sure. But
Yeah.
Tiger, look, he's he is the GOAT. I mean, we had a practice round. I know Nicholas has got the record, but we had a practice round. There was Mike Shannon, who was the pro at Isleworth, teaching pro, a very famous US putting coach. And Mike Shannon and we went out with Stuart and Robert in the 97 Masters, and we're having a practice round at Isleworth the week before. And Mark O'Meara's playing with Tiger in the group behind us. And we had a 4-ball match, and we had a really good 4-ball match, and the guys are making a heap of birdies, and Mike and I threw in a couple as well, and then we're up on the putting green, and Mark O'Meara comes past and goes, "Guys, I think we might all be playing for second next week." And and he said, "What are you talking about?" He said, "Well, Tiger's just 3-putted 2 par 5s and shot 59."
He told that story on this podcast a few months back. It's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, and Tiger went straight past us to the range, and then he went out, he go out in 39 or 40 in that front 9, and then the history after that was just turned it on and never changed it.
You've obviously spent a bit of time around him. How intense was he when he was practicing?
When he was practicing, it was like every shot mattered. You'd never see him hit a sloppy shot, but then he'd have a break, and he'd come over and sit in the cart, and we'd have music playing. We'd all be having a chat and talking about all the usual things, cars and music, and girls. Probably shouldn't have been talking about girls, but all the usual things that guys talk about. And it was just about the most normal guy you could be. But then he'd go back and hit balls, and it was like the switch went on, and he just goes into the bubble. But I could see him. This was maybe a Sunday, and I could see him at the Monday of the tournament. We'd fly off to the tournament the next day, and he'd look straight through you. He'd walk past you and look straight through you, and he wasn't trying to ignore you. When he turned up at a tournament, he just went into that mental state. He genuinely didn't see you.
Yeah, it's amazing, right? Just
So
looks through
it's
people.
really hard to explain that. Some people go, that's just rude, but he was just he was there to work, and
He was there in his domain.
Yeah, that's where he was. So, and he had to be able to shuttle that out, or he got sucked in by all the crowds and the Tiger Mania. He never would have been able to perform.
No. All right, we'll just about wrap this up so you can get out and do your yard work, mate. I appreciate your time. Say you had a 13, 14-year-old rock up to you now, scratch player, wants to be the best in the world. So this question is aimed to help the kids and the parents that are listening. What are some of the things that you would suggest they tick off to make sure that they're going to give themselves the best chance?
You've got to don't fall into any trap. Well, your preparation has to be holistic. And I've presented a lot on this. This is stuff we learn at the Institute of Sport. So to do well, you've got to have technical skills, you've got to have physical skills, you've got to have strategic skills. You've got to know how to play the game strategically as well as you can, and you've got to have mental skills. But importantly, you've got to have life skills. And if it's just golf, your life skills will be out of balance. So you've got to have a really balanced approach and leave no stone unturned. But it is a game, and the players that play the best play the game. They hit all the shots, and they love playing the game. If you're just going to try and become a laboratory golfer, I don't think it would last. I recommend everyone plays multiple sports. Some of the best players I've worked with Stuart was 15 when he started playing golf. KJ was 16. Greg Norman was 16. And we were talking about, players who've, won multiple tournaments around the world. So how can they start so late? And the reason they start so late is because they swam, they ran, they played football, like
They've developed all their athleticism in other sports.
Flano, Nick, he was 14 before he took up golf seriously.
Yeah.
He'd had a bit of a whack, but, he wins the second youngest player behind Tiger to win the US Amateur at 19. But so where's the background? He surfs, skateboard, BMX and soccer. So if there's a well-rounded, all of those physical skills that I'm talking about, the ABCs of movement, the running, jumping, hopping, skipping, all of those type of things, catching, throwing, kicking. If you've got all of those, learning the technical skills of golf is pretty straightforward. We get a lot of parents these days who think they want their child to specialise early and in just golf, and that just doesn't work. So I would recommend people play other sports, even after they turn pro, be involved in other sports that are, even if it's just going down and, playing a few hoops with your mates, some basketball or some, indoor soccer or whatever it might be. But, stay active and use all parts of your body and all types of movement. That's the rather than just go to the gym and do golf specific exercises and learn the swing. And it's just not the way it's done. I've never seen a great player who's actually come from that background yet.
It's funny. I've said this before on the pod. I got a daughter and a son, and my son plays soccer, and he's 5.5, and he loves it, right? And one of the dads made a comment the other week. He said, "Oh, you're a golf pro. I thought you'd have your son, playing golf by now." And I'm like, "Well, funny enough, he's learning how to play golf while he's out on the soccer field." And the guy just looked at me like, "What the hell are you talking about?"
You're brilliant.
But I said, he's moving. He's learning to move that ball. He's got to apply force. There's so many things that he's learning out there while he's playing, and he's also improving his fitness levels. And I said, there's so many other sports that tie back. You don't have to just specialize from 5 years old. But there would be a lot of kids that are, I guess, pushed into that by parents where golf's the only thing you're allowed to do.
When I get and that's what KJ's very, because a lot of the Korean factory, they're all on the driving range hitting ball after ball after ball with the parents standing behind him, and yet his own experience is the exact opposite of all of that. No driving range, uneven lies, hitting it off a loose surface, And his KJ's emphasis is on much more of that type of thing and playing other sports. His background was he was deadlifting twice his body weight at 12, and playing soccer and swimming. So he was physically ready to play golf.
Yeah. Mate, before we go, what would you say is the best piece of advice you've been given in life or golf over your time?
Oh, look, the thing that had the biggest impact on my coaching, and I'd like to think I was doing it anyway, was when we first started at the Institute of Sport, Dr. Frank Pike, the late Dr. Frank Pike, brilliant person, wonderful mentor. He got all the coaches, all the sports science people together, and he said, basically, this is how we succeed. Start every day with the question is, what is the best thing you can do today for the athlete? Leave your egos at home and surround yourself with people that are smarter than you.
I love it.
That's
what I'm doing right here with the podcast. I'm with people that are smarter than me.
Well, I mean, and I've tried to follow that. The best bit of swing advice, I mentioned before was off Jeff Flanagan. When I was a teenager, swing the club back. Yeah, don't try to move, manipulate. We try to stay away from all the M's: manipulate, maneuver, and mangle. Just swing the club back. That was because once you swing it back, and the natural athletic response to swinging it that way is to swing it that way.
Yeah.
So
congratulations on being inducted into the Victorian Golf Hall of Fame as well recently.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, that was a great honour, and the award was presented to me by Bruce Green.
Oh, that's amazing.
And that was just purely a coincidence. And part of my acceptance speech was I would never have played golf if it wasn't for Bruce giving a clinic at my school.
That's awesome. Banny, thank you so much for coming on, mate. I really appreciate taking a little bit of your time this week.
You're welcome. Thanks, mate.
Take care.